Welcome to No Clue. I'm Chad Rutherman.
I'm JJ Artemis.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And today we're going to be talking about Super Mario Sunshine, which was a game that was released, of course, by Nintendo on the Nintendo GameCube in Nintendo 2002. 2002. Yeah, it was developed and published by Nintendo, as every Mario game on the planet is. And so what you're probably thinking is No Clue Podcast, which is how I assume that you address us. Of why in God's name are you talking about Super Mario Sunshine the first time you talk about a Mario game? And I guess we don't really know.
Well, partially because it's Chad's favorite Mario, 3D Mario.
Correct.
Yeah.
It is in fact, we do know I was lying.
You'd lie often.
It was all rhetorical to get people to respond to us. Hopefully there are people on like a bus with their headphones and they're like, I never understood why that was the case.
I always kind of assumed that you had sort of like a massive bone to pick with the Mario audience, and I've always been so distant from that.
I feel like I'm not the only person who holds true to this, but yes, it's a hotly debated topic because people either think that Super Mario Sunshine is like I think everyone thinks that Mario Sunshine is the black sheep of the 3D Mario, collection.
Yeah.
However, it seems as though people are split a lot between whether they think it is, clearly the best or clearly the worst one. And I'm sure, because there always are moderates, but it's something that comes up where people will be like, well, Super Mario 64 was obviously the best one, or Galaxy was obviously the best one, but all I know is that Super Mario Sunshine is a turd in comparison.
Is there really an audience that thinks it's, by far the best?
Yeah, I'm sure a small contingency.
I guess,
But
yeah.
I'm aware of at least a few people who agree with me on this.
Alright, so then what's the line? Why the distinction?
Theming.
Theming?
Theming.
Are there people who just, are really, really...
Oh, I don't know about
early
other
balloon
people.
lighting?
That's the reason that I like the game the most.
Okay.
Because from a pure platforming perspective, I would say Sunshine probably has some of... It is among the weakest of level design in terms of pure platforming challenge.
Okay.
But...
Yeah, hands down for the Mario series.
You're right, that's what I'm...
Yeah.
Specifically within that context.
Yeah.
Because, you look at Super Mario 64, and everything was a prescribed platforming challenge. It was very cut and dry, and I can definitely see why some people would like that, and other people wouldn't, but it is objectively good from a platforming standpoint that your level is made up of these, very deliberately distanced platforms and all of these things. But what it sacrifices is that a lot of levels in Super Mario 64, particularly the tick-tock clock, the Rainbow Road one.
Rainbow Ride.
The stupid water one, where the water raises
Wet
and
Dry
lowers. Yeah, Wet Dry World. Those levels in particular are extremely abstract. But everything in Mario Galaxy and Galaxy 2, they're themed around planets, but it's still very abstract. But in Sunshine, everything has a direct real-world inspiration for what it is.
Even stronger than inspiration, at least based on the things that I've seen. They're just sort of wild and wacky places, but they still seem like a consistent place.
Right, it's beaches, construction sites, amusement parks.
Yeah. Galaxy sort
The
of
hotel from The Shining, I believe, was one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, Galaxy sort of hit the weird, surrealist middle ground between the just video game levels of 64 and the actual hotel complex of Sunshine.
Right.
And I guess I take the hard opposition to that point, whereas I usually, am all for, consistency in, a game's environment and, going that extra mile to make it seem like everything fits together.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels so completely out of place in a Mario game to me.
And I feel like this is probably where our differences lie, and potentially where this debate is just going to end.
Right.
And as we get into discussing the game proper, But Super Mario Sunshine was, I understand very strangely, my first 3D Mario game that I ever played all the way through.
Yes.
So, that being the case, I'm obviously going to have more of an affinity for it. And you can also see this sort of correlation in the fact that the first Zelda game we talked about was also its GameCube entry.
Right.
Because of that's just the age that we like. Probably our like defining generation of video game playing was during the GameCube, PS2, Xbox One era, and so that kind of a thing does play into when you pick your favorites, and that combined with the atmosphere and oh god, it's my favorite music in a Mario game. It made me just like this whole package, even if the strict platforming challenge of it is not like up to snuff, so to speak.
Is it the challenge that's not up to snuff, or like the design?
Yeah, they did make a lot of sacrifices in order to maintain that sort of like design consistency, because take Bianco Hills for example, the first level of the game. There's a cave. I think it's the second shine, like sequentially, that you have to get to, and the intended path involves jumping up onto like a tightrope and walking across the tightrope on one of its platforms and then doing a hover over to where the cave is.
Yeah.
But because they wanted the level to look like a lake surrounded by like hills, you can just sort of jump into the hill and start hovering, and you'll just be like, and just go straight up into the cave.
That's what I did.
Yeah, as what I did probably the first 1,000 times that I had to climb up a slanted surface in this game. And it's that kind of a thing that wouldn't exist in a more abstract game because they would just put a hard angle.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, that's a sheer wall. You can jump into it as much as you want, you're not going to get up.
And the existence of the flood, just in general, adds like a whole lot of flexibility and sort of squishiness to all of the platforming challenges in the game in the first place, which sort of exasperates this problem.
You end up with like huge levels that feel emptier because the platforms ought to be really far apart.
Right.
It makes sense.
I feel like, I never really felt like they felt empty, but I definitely will concede that they do. Like, they have to have that spacing to them.
They feel emptier.
Yeah, the thing that came to mind when he said that to me was like that beach level where you
Gelato Beach.
I don't know the name certainly.
The one with the sandbird.
You like water the plants and they explode into shapes out of the ground, and then the sand sinks back down. Like a lot of that level felt very, very sparse to me.
Yeah, that actually, that's a really good example of one that does, because that level is mostly, for the most part, all that level is just a shack, a dock, a beach, a hill, and that's it.
Yep.
And there's not a whole lot there except for those plants.
And the like solar facility thing.
Right. Yeah.
I also feel like the theming holds the game back too, because there's 3 stages with a beach.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it starts to feel a little bit samey.
Well, I think the construct of the game that causes the beach thing to be a problem is just the fact that the game just perennially has to take place around water, because you need pools of water to refill the flood. So there needs to be water like throughout, and like the things that seem strange are like there's a million fountains in Pino Park. In the hotel you just like jump into like a hot tub, which is in somebody's room for some reason.
Sprinklers.
There are lots of things that are sort of shoehorned in order to make sure that the water theme is still there.
Yeah. I find it weird in that instance that they even give you not like a limited amount of time in which you can spray water, but like a water tank that you have to keep track of in the first place. Because it makes sense, obviously, why they had to put limitations on the different flood abilities, like when you're actually using them one at a time. But I never felt like it really added much when I had to go back and refill water because I ran out. And granted, it takes a long time to do that. It only happened to me maybe like once or twice the whole time I had to get through all these things.
Right.
But I never really understood that choice.
Yeah, it doesn't. I cannot give you a single, like, respectable reason why they needed it, other than they wanted it to not seem like Flood was an infinite amount of water.
They could have just like done the thing so many other games do with these systems and just have this auto refilling bar. Like you
Right.
could have just represented the water tank as a thing on the right side of the screen that shows how far you can sort of
I don't.
hover.
Maybe that was like an attempt at balancing to like make the challenge more of a challenge. Like if you're on a part that requires you to do like a consistent amount of like platforming, if you would have to like manage your water, and that's what keeps it challenging.
Yeah, I can. That makes sense.
Because the only other things that come to mind as being a thing where that ever comes into play are extended sections where you have to use the boost nozzle, because that drains water rather quickly and is only limited by the amount of water in your tank. But I believe that actually automatically refills if you're going across water with it.
Yeah.
So even there, it's like, well, it's a half measure.
Yeah.
And then when you're using the rocket nozzle, it takes like a chunk out of it. So if you're using that repeatedly, the last platforming level where you have to jump through the clouds is a pretty good example. But even those have refills on them every once in a while.
Right.
So you just have to navigate to the correct thing to make sure you don't run out.
And running out of water in the first place is a really shitty fail state. It's not like just falling off a platform in these games where you're just brought back up to whatever arbitrary start point you were either at the very beginning of the level or right before you lost off of that platform. It's a lot faster to just be reset when you fail to hit a platform than have to like stop everything you're doing because you're out of water, run all the way back, and then start from the beginning.
I think they tried to remedy that by putting almost no bottomless pits in the game. Instead, if you fall off of something, you probably land in water, where you can refill the flood.
Right. My point is that between the two, I would have actually preferred the bottomless pit and then just be back on top of the platform.
Well, I feel that never happens in Mario games, though. Like, you would fall into a bottomless pit, and then it would just put you at the beginning of the level, which in this game doesn't work specifically for levels like Noki Bay. Would be incredibly frustrating to have to, like, in order to get back to where you were, jump, like, across the bouncy platforms, back onto the thing, climb the whole fucking mountain again.
Yeah. My assumption is only that any time you would have to go back to get water would be the equivalent of restarting the level, which isn't always true.
Right.
But
yeah, in fact, the existence of things like the sprinklers are a great example of how they, like, just sometimes don't want that to ever happen.
Yeah.
Because, like, they instantly refill it. You don't even have to do the refill animation. You're just automatically full on water again. And so it prevents there from being, like, an element of stress when doing, like, a Bowser Jr. level. Because you're just running and shooting water at him, and then your water gets refilled automatically, and you're like, I guess I'll just keep running. The only one of those that I
thing
found
that you want to do in a Mario game.
Yeah, is keep running. But I do want some level of, like, I want to feel pressured at least.
Yeah.
The only one of
Water
those
pressure.
water pressures. The only one of those that I found, like, particularly challenging was the Pianta Village one, because there's, like, lava all over the ground.
Right.
And it could be kind of a pain in the
Yeah,
ass.
that level actually has bottomless pits and like a less amount of water.
Yeah. And I actually, in turn, kind of like that level as a difference in kind from the others. So,
sort of the same role that often gets filled with those strange little secret levels.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are, and I mean, it's kind of like, I feel like in 2002 when this game came out, somebody was like, I would totally play a Mario game that was just
Blocks in space.
like just that exact game, or like those levels, the challenge platform levels, for the whole duration.
With kick-ass acapella singing in the background.
Right,
Absolutely.
and somebody was like, don't tell them about Mario 64, because we're putting out a game that's just like that in 6 years when we release Mario Galaxy. They just, I guess, can't get away from the, like, typical Mario.
Yeah, the
formula.
silly child's play toy abstractions that
Yeah.
often come through.
I think I had a point earlier that I kind of forgot about.
Good.
Oh, I was going to bring up when we were talking about, when I brought up that there's like 3 levels with beaches, I also this game has like half as many levels as Mario 64 does.
Sure.
And I have to wonder whether that's because of the theming, where they're like, we only can come up with things that would fit on the island.
Mm-hmm.
So did that limit them to how many ideas they could come up with, or was it a different, like, issue?
It's got to limit them in some respect when they're going for that sort of consistency. And they did go for, like, a lot of consistency.
There's also only 7 shines in each level instead of 10
I think
stars.
there are 8.
I mean 8.
There are plenty of
The
other
8th one is
things.
optional.
There are tons of other stuff that could have pressured them, too. Like, there's a lot of just, like, random, tiny, super polished things in this game that I was noticing. Probably the one that's often used as, like, the classic example of this sort of polish is functioning mirrors. If your video game has functioning mirrors anywhere, then there's a lot of money and time that went into it at some point.
Yeah. And this game, like, actually, yeah, in terms of GameCube technology, just as a brief aside, this game did this was probably, like, the poster child for how to make a GameCube game look really good.
Yeah, it holds up pretty well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was surprised how good it looked.
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, like, you look at Mario Galaxy and you're like, wow, like, you can see, like, the individual stitches on Mario's ass pocket. And then, but you're still jumping around in space, which is, like, a very simplistic thing visually. Because
Right.
it's, like, strange things floating on a black background.
Yeah.
And it's, like, in Sunshine, it's this whole world. And they're like, functioning mirrors, the water's reflective, it has, like, its own, like, particle effect, like when you shoot the water, that obscures your vision in, like, the areas where, like, the water is dissipating and, like, breaking stream. It all looks, like, very fucking good for a 2002 GameCube game.
To be clear, I still wouldn't put it ahead of Galaxy. They're good at different things. I feel like if they had tried to, like, remake Super Mario Sunshine for the Wii using the tech they had at the time, it would have looked better than Galaxy. And I say that only because the thing that I think Galaxy has over Sunshine isn't its theming. It's that all of the shapes in that game just looked very literally smooth.
Right.
This is always a hard thing for me to describe, but it's normally the case for high-quality Wii games for whatever reason, where everything just sort of, like, looks like it's a physical ball made out of, like, satin or something, and it's like a really
the way it's
polished
textured.
clay. Yeah.
I think the Wii, and this is, if I just sound like an idiot to somebody who knows more about this than I do, then so be it. But I believe that the Wii increased, like, the technical prowess of the, like, texturing work that they could do, but it did not improve the resolution. So what you end up with is, like, very well textured objects displayed at standard resolution. So they probably used some sort of a workaround to make it so that the, like, bits that would normally seem blurred or jagged didn't.
Yeah.
And maybe overcompensated.
I would say that what you said about Mario on the GameCube, I'd say the same thing for Galaxy on the Wii. Is that, like, Mario Galaxy is one of the best looking games on the Wii.
Yeah,
it's like they really, like, go all out with Mario to make those games look as good as possible.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, though, while we're talking about Sunshine's sort of graphical capabilities, is that I did get annoyed with the bloom lighting after a long enough period of time.
Right.
I know that they have a workaround in the game, so I can't really hit them too badly for that.
I find this
Sunglasses.
so funny.
Sunglasses.
Funny story. I knew that those existed, but, like I told you, I was trying to finish it so I could get you the copy.
Yep.
So I didn't, like, talk to any of the pianistas. So I missed the guy with the sunglasses. So what I did is I just actually put on sunglasses in real life, and it did the same thing.
Fantastic.
That is a very real sunglass simulation provided by Super Mario Sunshine.
It's just, in this case, you also made the rest of your house darker, which is even better because you could focus on the video game.
Yeah,
now.
higher contrast
Yeah.
screen, right? That's real good. No, but that actually does draw attention to the fact that, like, it isn't signposted in the game,
Right.
because you would have just probably seen it and done it.
Yeah.
And it's even it's in Bianco Hills, right?
Yeah,
And you have to like turn around.
No, you just turn
Yep.
left.
Yeah,
He's under a tree.
you could
Yeah.
so easily miss that.
Right, yeah. It didn't occur to me that he was that easy to miss
Yeah.
until you told me about that, and then I was like, oh, like, because I just took him for granted. Yeah, I explained this to Andy. Like, I don't actually know what the purpose of the sunglass mode is. If it's for, like, specifically for people who perceive the game as being too bright, or if they made the game too bright and they were like, oh God, what do we do?
I've through other people's reviews and stuff, apparently this game like can give people headaches because of how bright it is.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
that's why they did that.
Well, either way, never, as a kid and not as an adult, I never was bothered by the brightness, but what I would do is I would put the sunglasses on for like a few levels and then take them off again so that the game would seem more vibrant. It's like when you like stick your hand under cold water and then run it under hot water and you're like, whoa, it's so much hotter. Because I have a
we've all done
very
that.
basic understanding of how nerves work.
The game keeps getting brighter
Yeah.
as you collect more shines too, which might have been a step too far.
The game doesn't get brighter. I mean, it does technically, like by quantity of bright area, but like there's a circle of light in the middle of Delfino Plaza.
Yeah.
And as you collect additional shines, it widens. So yes, it does get more bright, but there's still just the binary difference
Right,
between
but
bright and not
it's bright all over now.
Right, yeah.
You have no place you can run in the darkness and be safe.
And if you get enough shines that the brightness goes past the beach, you can pick up a sick Hawaiian shirt from a dude there. And so Mario can look extremely chill
Good.
in sunglasses and a Hawaiian shirt.
What color is this Hawaiian shirt?
It's like, it's blue with a bunch of shine sprites on it. It's really good.
Sounds like pajamas. Or like a wizard outfit.
Okay, imagine those things.
Can you imagine a
but
wizard in a
as a
Hawaiian
Hawaiian
shirt?
shirt?
Watch The Sword and the
Wizard
Stone.
in a Hawaiian.
There is a wizard in a Hawaiian
Yes,
shirt?
the end of the Disney's The Sword and the Stone.
Uh-huh.
Merlin gets really mad at Arthur because he decides that he just wants to be a squire instead of like studying and being smart and all that. So he's just like, fuck you, I'm leaving, and he time travels to Bermuda. And then he comes back in a Hawaiian shirt.
This is so weird. Maybe that's a direct
Solid.
inspiration for Super Mario Sunshine's outfit change.
I just meant the whole like blue with stars thing that wizards seem to be really into for
yeah,
whatever
it's
reason.
true.
Yes,
yeah.
that
The
is
shine
fair.
sprites aren't really
It's like
stars.
sky blue.
Yeah.
It's not
Okay.
like Mickey from Fantasia, like blue.
Deep.
blue.
Yeah, it's not like a
Stars and
midnight blue.
moons.
Right.
All right.
But though actually that does sort of like have some. There was a thing, and it wasn't really a controversy. I don't want to call it that because I don't think anyone actually cared.
Okay.
But I remember that at one point someone tried to make a big deal out of the fact that this was the first time that Mario wore a short-sleeved shirt.
Oh,
Under his
yeah.
overalls.
Yeah, he's wearing a short sleeve shirt. In this
Yeah.
game.
And it was like, when I remembered that, I was like looking at the screen, not noticing, and then remembered that he was wearing a short sleeved shirt, and suddenly I just like couldn't tear myself away from his sleeve.
I never noticed this.
No,
I'm
see,
Googling
yeah.
this right now.
I was gonna say I noticed it immediately, and it was something that always was like really noticeable to me.
Oh, you know what sleeves I noticed immediately? Peaches, lack of sleeves. She normally has like a little like royal
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
thing.
because she's going on vacation.
Yeah, she doesn't
Yeah.
have those either.
Yeah,
she just
it'd be
has
too
like
hot.
open shoulders.
Yeah.
I found that kind of
But
weird.
yeah, like, but Peach would wear like a tank top when she played tennis.
Yeah,
But
right.
Mario,
Would
long
still
sleeves
wear-
and overalls.
That's his athletic wear.
Yeah, it clearly is. The dude is extremely athletic for
Did
being
you Google Mario short sleeve shirt?
I did. That was bad.
What an idiot.
Bad move.
Look at all of the Google shopping results.
Yeah, I'm just gonna Google Mario, Super Mario, Sunshine,
Sunshine.
Mario, Sunshine, Mario, Super.
While we're talking about the characters, can we
Mhm.
talk about the incredibly weird decision to have voice acting in this game?
Yes, let's
Yeah.
do that immediately.
That is actually a thing that
Yeah,
I
because-
thought we might lead in with.
Yeah, this is just to like give a little background here. This is Chad's favorite 3D Mario. I'd never played it, so and I had the perception that this game's the black sheep of the series.
Right.
But like I love 3D platformers and I love Mario, so I was like, I'm gonna like it anyway. So I'm gonna go in open-minded here.
Just to clarify, you did, right? Like, you did enjoy.
Oh yeah,
this
I
game.
like this game.
Okay.
But I can see why people don't like it and why it is the black sheep, because there's lots of weird decisions in this game.
Yeah, the entire plot is weird.
Yeah.
It is weird from the moment that the game starts and then never ceases to be weird all the way through to the end.
So yeah,
credits.
I did like it a lot, but I do see where people are coming from. And one of those things is like, why is there voice acting?
And specifically, why is
it is
there
horrible.
only voice acting for Peach and Toadsworth and no one else?
Oh, Bowser has it.
And Bowser Jr. But I mean, like,
and
in
the
that
Flood.
opening cutscene, you get this whole thing where it's like Peach and Toadsworth talking, and Mario never speaks. And at that point, you're thinking like, okay, now that I've pulled my head back onto my body, and I'm like, they have voice acting in this Mario game for the first time, basically ever. Yeah. But Mario isn't going to talk. And then you walk 3 feet to the left and talk to a guy who just goes like, and you're like, nope, I guess.
They speak a different language, man.
Yeah, maybe they're speaking PNTs, and then they just don't.
And like the voice acting is so bad.
It's very bad. Yeah,
it's so bad.
It was both shockingly bad and shocking in its existence, because I was so conditioned to every other Mario game where they just have like quips. Well, they'll say like one sentence, and that's the only thing they'll ever say for the whole game.
Yeah.
Until they do anything. So once the second sentence began, when they started to actually have a reaction.
I really want to know what the first line that was said in the game was, because that would be weird if it was. I guarantee it would be weird if that was the only line. I'm pretty sure the first Peach says like,
Peach
I
says
can't wait to get on vacation or something.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even be sure it was Peach. It would just be like some strange, like, female voiceover at the beginning of the game.
No, because Peach has like a somewhat established voice. Peach
All
had
the
like quips
do.
in 64.
Right.
Yeah,
Like,
she reads
like one.
She narrates the letter at the beginning.
The whole
64. I don't think so.
But at least some of it. There's. She had her established prior to this.
Right, that's called a voice. No, yeah, and I totally, that is a thing that was established, but and then this game just has it, but only for, I guess, a total of 5 characters.
I guess my theory was that there are some things in this game that seemed like experimental for Nintendo, because it was a huge leap in technology between the PS1 and 64 generation and the GameCube, PS2, Xbox generation. So there were a lot of changing trends. Voice acting was becoming more popular, so they threw their hat in that ring. And I also think the realistic consistency of the world was a thing that they're like, we can do this now.
Right.
So they tried it. And it kind of seemed like they were dipping their toes in a bunch of different pools with this game, and it feels less cohesive to me.
Yeah, Nintendo has if you have a cogent point to that, go ahead.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
There is weirdness though that's even different and separate than that. Like you were talking about the plot earlier being weird.
No, I actually really like the plot. I didn't bring that up.
I had a weird out of body experience watching the trial scene. It's just so unusual.
Yeah.
Why? When you're talking about Mario,
yes.
Why does he need the motivation of criminal punishment to clean up the place?
Well, I think the idea is that they were going on vacation.
Yeah.
And he would need some kind of motivation to be okay, I won't enjoy my vacation. I'll help you.
Am I supposed to believe
that? I've never seen an instance of any iteration of Mario where, at least not pre-Galaxy, where he did anything just because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, he only ever springs to action when Peach gets kidnapped,
right.
And she doesn't get kidnapped till a couple stages.
Yeah, like the
Yeah,
second
yeah.
act.
Yeah.
You know? So
But yeah, I liked this.
So Mario's like, I don't want to play. I'm just gonna go home.
It's just
Yeah.
I don't picture Mario. I just buy into the like stereotypical PG hero archetype that they want him to be.
The important thing is that you didn't like buying this game in 2002 on your GameCube. You don't expect to be presented with a scene of Mario in a defendant's seat with like a spotlight on him, nervously looking around a courtroom while they sentence him to jail.
There's just no way that I'd ever think of like, oh, he pulls in on this little plane thing and gets off. Oh, there's a bunch of fucking muck everywhere on the place he was trying to go to vacation. He's not going to just be like, fuck that, let's go somewhere else.
I thought that you were going to like stick it to the Delfino Island justice system. You're like, clearly he didn't cause that mess.
No.
He just got off the plane.
Look
at all of these eyewitnesses.
You should have been Mario's lawyer.
Yeah.
Should have. But no, I'm done with criticizing justice systems after Chrono Trigger. I'm satisfied with the hypothetical justice system presented. They had a lot of Mario evidence, yeah.
I feel like we may have developed too many running things, but I wouldn't be upset with a running thing being a justice system critique of any game that we do.
No clip political justice hour.
This was one thing that they did different, the plot that they did different that I think paid off.
Mhm.
Because I like that it's just a completely different setup. Like, it picks up where 64 left off. Like, he rescued
Which is
Peach
already
from Bowser.
weird.
Yeah, he rescued Peach from Bowser through they're taking a vacation.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the vacation goes wrong, and they end up on the island, and Peach isn't kidnapped at the beginning, although she does get kidnapped.
Yeah.
And it's just a nice change of pace that they actually did something different.
Yeah.
And Bowser isn't the villain until the end. But
Yeah.
they go halfway.
Well, I mean,
on those,
not just until the end, until literally the
literal
final
end,
boss.
yes.
Yeah. And even then, it's sort of a tag team boss battle with him and Bowser Jr.
Right.
And weird automated, like, boats that shoot bullets at you for some reason.
Wasn't Bowser Jr. were like
Like, he's piloting the boat.
boats?
I feel like there's other things in the back. But there's so much going on in that boss
Peach is
fight.
on a rubber ducky.
That's what it
in
is.
the back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that they actually like did something different.
I kept
The setup.
Because another weird decision of this game, the fact that you could just talk to any NPC walking around that you wanted with the B button.
Right.
I kept like assuming there would be like more reward to that than there ever actually was. And like early on in the game, I am not a person who's used to like the normal Mario flows.
Right.
So I didn't feel like there was a ton of incentive after completing any given level to like jump right back into it and like get another shine.
Oh,
like
right.
there was so much. Because they kept delineating things in like these specific shine levels like that, I kept feeling these hard stop points, and like there should be stuff that I'm doing in Delfino in between. So I'd always run back to Peach and talk to her and be like, "Is there what am I supposed to do?"
And she
Important
was like,
character to the plot, I assume.
Let me try out your true strength.
Man.
Turn in your shine souls. And
Yeah.
but no,
That's-
actually that's a really good note that you aren't like used to the Mario flow.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something that they just assumed.
Oh, they assume more than that. Too.
Yeah.
They
Yep.
assume the controls. Not all of them,
'cause
but some of them.
Nintendo's actually kind of, with the exception of Zelda, is kind of where they go way overboard. Is not particularly good at like tutorializing
Oh yeah.
controls.
The tutorials in this were pretty bad.
Yeah, they don't do that, generally speaking.
Actually, as somebody who is like a Mario veteran,
Right.
I had trouble adjusting to the controls of this game.
Are they different?
They
I
are.
No,
Well, they're
Mario,
different from 64.
Mario himself
In some key
controls basically the same.
Okay.
You'll
Yeah.
pick up the game and you'll be running around as Mario and it feels great.
Because that was my
But
assumption.
then they throw you a huge curveball. They're like, here's the flood. And you're like, oh. And because you're like, this is alien to me. And I was just running around in Mario without it, and that felt pretty good. So what you want to do for like the first level is ignore the flood.
Yeah.
And so like you're fighting against it until you eventually learn how to use it.
Right. This being the first Mario game that I played all the way through,
Fair.
that did not even occur to me. In fact, what like my process was I started using overusing the flood, and then didn't even know about some of the cool moves that Mario could do until like way later, because Mario was given in 64 basically a fighting game's control scheme where it'd be like this is your jump and this is your attack, and then you'd waggle the fucking control stick in specific ways to make him do crazy other shit.
Oh, yeah, like the spin thing?
Yeah, if you rotate it in this game, if you rotate the control stick and press A, you do a spin jump, and if you rotate the control stick and press R, you'll do a spin that shoots water. And then, like, there's the backflip from 64.
Right.
You've got wall kicks. You have the triple jump.
Yep.
You've got all
no
this...
long jump.
There's no long jump
The
in
only
this
thing
game.
they didn't carry over from 64.
I think that would have fucked with their platform placement too much.
Yeah. You would have been able to jump forever.
Yeah. You just...
Yeah. He would have been launched like a plane.
Yeah.
From any location. And I remember a lot of those things tutorialized. I think the only thing that you said that I don't remember there being a specific tutorial for was the whole, like, spin while using the flood thing.
Right.
But the thing that I mentioned when I first brought this up that wasn't tutorialized to me, that was a huge problem, I had no idea that the jump in the air and slam down thing that you can do was even a thing.
Yeah.
They never actually... There's no pop-up for that. So I was just stuck on the first boss for an hour.
Oh.
That is such a Nintendo staple that I can't believe... It seems so unbelievable that someone wouldn't know what the ground pound was.
Exactly. And I see that was generalized in this game, because I only knew about a lot of these other things from other games, too, like the backwards backflip, which was a crutch for me for, like, the whole time, but a really easy way to jump really far.
I'm pretty sure that you could go through this entire game and only ever do the backflip instead of the regular jump.
Yep.
Like, it's so good.
Yeah, my guess was that it just used the same control scheme as 64, and, like, if there's a short list of any video games you can just assume that your audience has played before,
It's
Super Mario
amazing.
64 is on that list.
Yes.
Yep. Like, literally, I think, like, every platformer on the 64... The protagonist had the ground pound move.
Right.
Like,
And
even
it
if
was on the PlayStation 2.
It was on Mario. It was on Mario Party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you could do that in that game. Yeah, Jack and Daxter had a ground pound.
Yeah,
Yep.
like Banjo-Kazooie have a ground pound.
Yep.
Donkey Kong 64,
Ground
you got
pound.
ground pound.
Didn't even know it was possible until I had to Google, like, the Piranha boss, which was embarrassing to me.
PD Piranha.
Yes.
Probably the worst character introduced in this game.
He's introduced in this game?
Yeah, this is the first instance of of this iteration of PD Piranha.
Like, there's no other piranhas before this?
There's
There are
piranha,
piranha
plants.
plants.
It's like he's a specific character.
Yeah,
What distinguishes him?
he wears a diaper.
Yes, that's weird.
He is a reoccurring character.
Okay.
Yeah, he has a giant head and wears a diaper.
All right.
Yeah. I remember him being in something that I found just very strange, but I can't remember what it is now.
I can't remember.
Really, anything that he's in
Yeah.
is just very strange.
But no, I was like I was saying, I wanted to go back because this was a big takeaway for me because I almost bounced off this game really hard.
Right.
Because like I had that dilemma at the beginning where I wanted to just like ignore the flood because I'm so used to regular Mario controls, and because of the level design, like in the gaps being huge, like I got to Rico Harbor, which is the second level. And like you go up on all that scaffolding or whatever it's supposed to be, that you're jumping around on, and like the gaps are big and the camera pulls really far away from you, and like the camera kept being so far away because the platforms were so far apart, and like I want the camera to be closer, so I try to move it closer, and then it pulls back because they're like, no, you want it back here, and like it really, really bugged me to the point where I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to play this game, but like I got over it and. I got used to it, like the way the camera worked, but like the camera mixed with the level design, like really, like deterred me at the beginning.
Yeah. They have early 3D camera problems. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, though. If there are two things that are bad about this, like the two worst things about this game, it's the camera and Rico Harbor. And the fact that they had the audacity to put that right up front is just like. Terrible.
What's wrong with Rico Harbor?
Rico Harbor is it's
my
the
least
most
favorite
frustrating
level
level in the whole game.
Because you always jump in the water and
Yeah,
swimming takes so long?
Swimming takes forever. Like, re-climbing the scaffolding is needlessly, like, time-consuming.
Yeah.
Those wind enemies are bullshit. Complete.
Oh,
well,
I
you can
forgot
spray
about
them
the
with
bullshit
water,
wind
but
enemies,
Yeah. And then it's the first appearance of the most overused boss in this game, the giant blooper.
It's kind of a fun boss, though.
It's a fine boss. They use him 3 times, and that
True.
seems a little excessive.
But yeah, because that level took me so long to get through, I was like, oh man, like, I suck at this game. Like, it's going to take me forever to beat this.
Yeah, this time that I played it, I skipped. I did, like, the first level in Rico Harbor. I was like, I'll come back to it. And did everything else, and then came back to Rico Harbor last. It is. I don't know. I just don't like it. I do
It's by
like the
far my
blooper
least
riding minigame, though. That is fun.
That, I was really pissed when I did that game. Because I did it, and I got all the coins, and the shine showed up on the... So I, like, drove him around the side of the dock to the beach.
Classic mistake here.
And it kills you.
Yeah.
It's just like... like, you
once
lose.
you get on the blooper, you can't get off.
Yeah, you have to just jump the blooper into the shine on the dock, or else you lose. I thought, like, I'll just ride him into the beach, and, he'll dissolve away, and I'll walk up to the shine. Nope. You had to do the game all over again.
Yeah. That is... I know that happened to me my first time, but then, like, any subsequent time, I enjoyed it, because I wasn't pissed because I did that. The second blooper race that's in, like, the weird obstacle course, I think it's the optional Rico Harbor one, so it's possible that you didn't do it.
I don't think I did.
Is I think is a lot better if you just enjoy the, like, weird skateboarding mechanics of riding the bloopers, because, like, it actually, like, is a cool, like, test of your mettle. And you don't have to go through a horrible bullshit whenever you game over on it.
Okay.
Which is good. Because all of those, like, secret bonus shines in Delfino, if you game over and you have to do the whole, like, process of getting to it again, is just, like, a nightmare.
Surprising no one, I found none of those secret shines.
Alright.
I saw them with my eyes. I never reached any of them.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's for me seeing them with my eyes.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah. One thing I really didn't like that was a difference from 64 was that every time you enter the level, it shows you where the shine is, and you can't do them out of order.
True.
Like, because like in 64, you'd go into the level and it'd be like, go do this.
Right.
And you could just not go do that and go get a different star.
You're right.
And in this game, it's like there's things in the levels different every time when you go in, so you can only get that specific shine.
This becomes, like, toxic bullshit when you're going for the 100 coin sprite and discover that the level that you, like, the section of the level you chose is impossible to obtain 100 coins in. And you're like, oh, well, I'm glad I wasted all of that time to get 92 coins and have to leave.
Yeah. Because
that just seems like just backpedaling, and I don't understand why they did it that way.
Oh, I assume it's so they could create that intentional diversity. It's so that one level of the beach level can have, like, a giant centipede on top of the...
It kind of feels like they tried to, like, just make the game longer.
I mean, I can see...
Because it's, like, half as long as 64. Because it's only got 7 stages instead of 15.
How does that make it longer? The only time that's being added is what? Like, just the time when you're kicked out of the level for getting...
We already kicked out of getting a shine in 64.
Yeah, then I don't understand what makes it longer then.
Hold on. It made sense in my head when I said it.
I think that the existence of the, like, is just so that they can...
Well, if there's one that you can't get, then you just have to, like, leave or get good enough to get... You can't skip a shine.
Not mid-level you can't, no.
Yeah, so... But that could make the game longer.
Have either of us ever done that, though?
Skip the star? I do that all the time in 64.
No, like, even, like, attempting... Did you ever go into a sunshine level and be like, oh, I can't get this shine, and then backed out and then tried a different one?
You can't.
You can't?
You can't go, like... In 64, they were all lined up, and you could pick whichever one you wanted.
The question that he's asking is, have you ever gone into a Super Mario Sunshine level, attempted to complete it, not done it, and then instead of either dying or
getting it,
just quitting out of the level and going to do something else?
right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I feel like I might have done that if something was, like, just really getting my goat. But for the most part, I don't know. I would just start and then keep retrying until I finished it.
Either way, I think this is mild and probably... I think there are other reasons, more obvious reasons, that they chose for, like, the weird level delineations.
I think the most, like, on its face, like, obvious reason for it is just to be able to present, like, a discrete challenge. So it's like, this particular level has this particular challenge in it, and it, like, if you come back, these things won't be here because they're just set up for that. Like the Il Pentissimo.
The what?
Races. It's this weird guy who might just be the mailman from Majora's Mask wearing a Pianta suit.
Oh, that guy.
What's a Pianto suit?
A
Pianta
Pianta
are the guys, the characters.
Okay.
Those
Alright.
guys.
Yeah, the
The
guy that you
balls
have to
of
race.
pineapple.
Yeah, and he wears like a purple, like, he wears gloves and a dumb head that barely covers the top half of his actual head.
Okay, I've seen
And then
this.
like a wife beater, and then you just you race him, and if, but yeah, like those levels are designed for those races specifically.
Yeah.
And so, like, you couldn't do that with like the giant wiggler running around.
But I think we can also agree that in a perfect world, the delineation wouldn't exist. You would just get good enough at your level design that in 64-like style, one area can have like all this crazy possibility space and all these different secrets based on what the player does.
But, like, I greatly prefer Sunshine's method of doing it, actually.
Why?
Just because I prefer the variety in the levels. Like, 64, I think, in this instance, is a bad example, because I think that 64 had very basic and not good level design, and I'm usually in the minority in this debate, but, like, the fact that they have a star that's, like, up top, and a star that you have to wear the metal suit to sink into some water to get, is not, like, cleverly designing your level to be beaten in multiple ways. It's just putting two collectibles in your level. And it's like, the ones that have challenges, like throwing the bomb off the cliff in the first
Right.
level, are cool, but, like, something like on Gelato Beach in Sunshine, spraying the, like, weird eggplant things to knock over the Wiggler while he's rampaging around is, like, a much more interesting design to me, and I like the fact that I can go in and do that, finish, and then come back and there will be people with watermelons there. And it's like, oh, it's a
But
totally different thing.
Why couldn't they handle it the way they did in 64, where you could just skip over those and go to a different one if you didn't want to do that?
Oh, that, I guess, is a thing. I feel like they shouldn't be
Because
able to.
64 had, like, the first level's a good example. So they have the boss, and then you have to race Koopa the Quick
Right.
for the second star.
And, like,
those
it's clearly inferior to Il Piantissimo, though.
Yeah, probably. So those, you can only do those two stars on those specific ones. But then after that, you can do any one you wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that, I guess, and, well, yeah, Bob-omb Battlefield, don't get me wrong, is a greatly designed level. Like, that level is amazing. But, yeah, I didn't think about that particular aspect of it. I think being able to skip over levels is probably a good thing.
You can't skip forward. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Well, there are things like, in Noki Bay, each star actually is part of a story. Because
Noki Bay is my favorite level.
Yeah, Noki Bay is the most beautiful level to me.
Yeah,
I think it looks really
the
good.
best. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it works. I think best with the controls because they designed it vertically. I thought the platforming was best in that level.
Yeah. It's just really well done.
But I think Mario 64's level design was more focused on just like strict platforming, whereas this game, a lot of the stars or shines are obtained through non-platforming challenges.
Yeah.
So that's where like that difference in level design, like that is probably why you prefer this game to
There are a lot
64.
of like just quirky interaction shine levels. Like the one that comes to mind again, because I don't know why this sticks on my mind so heavily, the beach level, of where there's that just wigglers going all nuts on the beach, and you just have to realize that you can like knock him over.
with
I don't, because
yeah.
I think in that level, I don't know if there's any shines that really require much platforming. There's the one where you have to knock the duck things off of the
by doing the
solar panel, so you have to do platforming there, and then there's the one where you have to actually ride the sandbird.
Right.
But
that's not even
that,
in the level. They
right.
just take you out of the level and put you somewhere
else. But other
else.
than that, it's all like, do this little mini game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, we should talk about those mini games when we come back from the break.
Okay.
Cool. So, in Super Mario Sunshine, and this is something that neither of you really got to experience much of, if any at all, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who says that you would be missing like a large portion of what makes the game good by skipping these. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of these sort of bonus shines that are just for completion of the game. Like you don't need to do it to beat the game, get the credits.
Yeah, completionist.
Right. You just need to go through the levels. But in addition to the levels, the additional shines that are part of each world, there are also these overworld shines. And there are a few, like the ones that you mentioned, where you can see them.
Yeah.
Like, there are a couple, I know there's one where all you have to do is get the speed nozzle and then run through a door. And it's just on the other side of that door. It's in the jail cell.
I got it.
Yeah. And like there's one that you can get for like spraying the giant shine. Like if you clean the giant shine.
Oh, I never figured out where I could do that.
Yeah.
I did that too.
Yeah.
That was the first overworld shine that I got. I was like, that's dirty.
Yeah.
It's got to get cleaned.
I need to clean that.
Yeah.
In fact, I had such trouble getting to it that I assumed that it was like a plot important dirty shine. I assumed I would do something later in the game, and it would eventually become.
I think you need the rocket nozzle.
You need the rocket nozzle
to get up to it.
Yeah. That's also where the pipe for.
Whatchamacallit.
Oh no! What's it called?
Pianta Park.
No, it's the shine for or the pipe.
Pianta Village.
Yes.
Not Pianta Park.
Pianta Park. Pianta
Village.
I
That's
thought
the one.
Finally there'd be a single time where you guys would know the exact bullshit Mario proper name.
No, we'll name them all. Yeah, I cringed a little bit when you said caterpillar, or no, you said centipede instead of wiggler.
Yeah,
because wigglers are the best Mario enemies.
I'm so sorry.
I would totally disagree with that.
I'm not even
Whatever.
100% sure that I agree with that, but I do love wigglers. That's a fact.
I think wigglers are cool, but I think like in terms of gameplay, they're like one of the worst enemies.
Not the worst. They
said one of.
They offer such like an interesting dynamic in 2D Mario games.
Because they
2D Mario.
Yeah, in 2D. In 3D, they don't really ever show up. The
Right.
ones in this game are just like hilariously large.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the in 2D Mario games, wigglers would walk back and forth like they do.
Yeah.
But if you jumped on them, they didn't die. They just got mad and started moving faster.
Ah.
But you could also use them to make your jumps higher because they act as like a springy surface. So if you hold the jump button, you'll go higher off of them.
Okay.
So, a little Mario World information for you.
Yeah,
anyway, what I was saying, though, is like the secret of levels in the main game, they have these levels where sometimes they take flood away from you, sometimes they don't, but it plays the a cappella Mario theme and puts you in like the abstracted floating in space areas, and these are probably some of the hardest levels in the game.
I think they're some of the hardest 3D Mario levels ever.
Yeah, this is absolutely
really?
true.
Yeah, I found them to be insanely difficult.
Well,
Okay, I feel a bit less stupid now.
Depending on if you consider Super Mario 3D Land to be a true 3D Mario game
I don't
or not.
really.
Yeah, because the, like, post-game levels of that are, like, bonkers.
I don't even think I played those.
Yeah, but I agree with you.
It's the once again I think it's the camera. It's always right behind Mario, and it's hard to change it.
Mm-hmm.
And your depth perception is like kind of off. Like you don't know how far apart the platforms are.
Right.
Oh god, the depth perception in relation to the camera thing. You just brought back like a traumatic first level memory of this game for me.
I think it's not like that in the regular game, but in the secret levels. Ugh.
I'm gonna be dumb and attempt to get both of you guys to remember a specific platform in the first level of the game.
Shouldn't be too
Bianca,
hard.
yeah, we could probably do this.
Okay. On the lake, there's like those platforms that are connected by the tight ropes.
Yeah.
The first one of those, where there's like an enemy on the tightrope that goes back and forth
Yeah,
on
the
it,
little red
comes through.
sparking guy.
I counted 17 attempts after I started counting. I don't know how many before that.
Right.
17
17.
to jump over it.
You underestimate how horrible I am at platforms.
Why didn't you move the camera to the side?
No,
so
no,
you
no.
can see where it is.
That's not. My problem was not avoiding the enemy. That was
Oh.
that was the smaller, but it was a relevant
It
challenge,
was a
but still a
tertiary
problem.
issue.
Gotcha.
The real problem was I overshot the platform or undershot the platform almost every time.
Oh,
Gotcha.
from jumping off of the...
Yep.
Gotcha.
See, I had those.
That is really difficult to
I
do.
had those problems when I started this game as well.
But that's why Flood exists, though.
Yeah.
It's because you can correct... You just can't give yourself too much forward momentum, or else you'll be like, trying to push yourself back. and
Yeah,
not
I
be
kept
able to.
flooding myself like just over the platform whenever I'd try and use it. That's why the depth perception made it come back to me, is because I kept not being able to understand my character like in 3D space in relation to the ground.
Thing, in those kinds of situations, I think it's best to not use the flood unless you need it to correct.
Yeah.
So like
Right.
you jump, and then if you're going over, then you use it to like push yourself back.
Either way, this
Don't
is
jump and immediately flood because you'll push yourself too far.
like I recognized absolutely that the systems of the game are designed to allow you to sort of like mitigate the sort of problems that I have. This
Right.
isn't even a game criticism. I'm just trying to make you guys and the audience at large appreciate how horrible I am at platformers and always have been, and probably always will be.
Right.
Yeah.
That is absolutely like a mastery thing, because I know every time I pick up Mario Sunshine for the first time in like a while, it takes me a decent amount of time to be able to like exist. Like the ability to hover really kind of it makes you almost overthink where your landing position is going to be.
Yeah.
They do the same thing they did in 64 and just give you like a round shadow that tells you where you're going to land, but it's just so complicated to try and get that to line up right with being able to move on like while above the ground on the Z-axis, on the other axes, and also with momentum.
Yeah. It's the momentum and the like Z-axis control that's the problem, because in a regular Mario game, because your jumps are generally so consistent, you all kind of always know. You can kind of more easily draw an arc in your mind of where you're going to land based on the sort of momentum you have.
Right.
But the flood adds like a lot of variability in momentum and allows you to sort of break up those arcs really easily, so it makes things in general less predictable in early game when you don't have a full understanding or control of the flood and your 3D relations.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of levels in the later like worlds that sort of are designed to tax your understanding of flood, because it involves like things like turning in midair, which is incredibly like
Hard.
yeah, it's a thing
Or-
that you almost don't ever want to do.
Yeah. It takes a long time, I think, too, for it to
Right.
get him to turn.
And then you start hearing the water sputtering, and you're like, oh no.
I always refer to that as crossing the streams.
right, yeah.
Because when you turn, like, the streams do cross. So I'm like, you never want to cross the
The
streams.
streams.
Yeah. Lots of platformers, 2D or 3D, have a tendency to sort of punish halfway or like not particularly well controlled movements.
Yeah.
Whenever I'd play 2D Mario games, I'd always get into trouble when when I was attempting mid-air to compensate for some kind of error. Like I was already done whenever that was happening.
Well, see, that's the thing. It's like you have to perceive it the way that you would in a different genre of game. A platformer is going to punish you for making a sloppy jump or like not fully considering your trajectory when you take your leap,
Mhm.
in the same way that a first-person shooter is going to punish you for shooting at a wall.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you're just not doing what the game is designed to accomplish. And it's,
Maybe hesitating before you shoot would be a better
option.
comparison
maybe
than
not
shooting at a wall.
Maybe not a perfect analogy.
Like maybe like over aiming. That's a thing people do because like oftentimes whenever people are trying to learn how to be snipers and all these FPSs, they try
I was just
and,
gonna say, like,
they try and head track instead of predict future location.
Yeah, rest in peace, my attempts at playing Widowmaker. I'm getting there. But yeah, the thing that's the impetus of all of this is those bonus stages are just so complicated in terms of actual like platforming, and you have to keep so many things in mind. This isn't one of the overworld ones. I don't remember exactly which world it's from, but I know there's one stage that has the red and blue flipping platforms. That took me so many attempts, because it has those, and it has the like winged beanie wearing big nosed flat guys.
What?
You know what I'm talking? We found a proper noun. I don't know. It's the little orange guys who look like they're wearing spotted red pants, but they're like little like almost spherical pancake bodies.
Spherical pancake bodies?
Somebody knows what I'm talking about, and they're like,
They've
man,
got
you
red
could probably.
pants?
It looks like they have red pants on and like little blue shoe feet.
You can't both be spherical and have a pancake body.
Well, they're like
Unless you're like an egg
oblong.
body.
It's not an egg.
Oh, they
though.
have- so
Like a
But-
spherical body that's been pancaked.
It's been pancaked.
So like an alien saucer?
It doesn't have a lump. But yes.
You mean the spherical part, the lump?
No, I'm thinking.
Oh,
like
no,
a
you mean the
flying
top
saucer.
lump.
Yeah,
Okay.
like the cockpit.
Yeah, yeah. If it was just like a modern, not Comic
A
Sans.
sleek.
Yeah, yeah. A discus style
Right.
UFO.
The important part of this discussion is that they put enemies on this like very complicated moving platform jumping puzzle that has gaps and like differences in height.
Yeah.
And it was just like trying to keep in mind the enemies, like being able to use the enemies to jump off of, the platform heights and the order in which they're going to flip was just so complicated for me to try and like understand that I fully like agree that those are some of the hardest 3D Mario levels that have ever
Yeah, I
been
mean,
made.
also, like, they take the flood away from you.
Yeah.
Right. There are a few that they don't in
Those-
the overworld ones, but they're
Oh,
usually like
okay.
very gimmicky.
Yeah, the ones in the regular levels, you always have the flood taken away from
Yeah.
you.
You can actually go back and do a time trial version of those if you do them again,
Oh, cool.
where you have the flood, which makes it like a whole other like different kind of challenge.
Yeah, weird.
Super Mario Sunshine's secret level enemies did not yield any good results.
They're like a regular
try,
enemy
like-
in the game. I'll look it up at some
Yeah,
point.
I
and
feel
bring
like
it
you're
to your
just
attention.
doing such a horrible job
of
describing
explaining it. Yeah.
You mean you didn't even try like spherical pancake people with red pants?
Okay, see, they're in the regular game, and when they're in the regular game, they're usually like buried underground, and they pop up and they waddle at you, and they make
Okay. That
noise when they
sounds
go toward you.
familiar.
Yeah. But regardless, I may be conflating those and the stop sign elephant from Yoshi's Story and his spotted red pants.
That might be what you're
his
doing.
name is Packy Derm, though.
I think
I know that one.
I think I know that from a Smash Brothers trophy because I've heard that
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
but I've never played anything related to Yoshi.
Dude, Yoshi's Island, Yoshi's Story, two of the greatest games with the word Yoshi in the title.
True. Yoshi's Story is a game that I remember fondly, but I actually don't think it's that great.
I replayed
Especially
it
in comparison
actually
to,
weirdly
like,
recently.
Yoshi's Island, which is actually a really
Well,
great game.
Yoshi's Island's like a phenomenal platformer. Yoshi's Story is like a children's game.
Right.
But it's a good game still, though. And weirdly creepy sometimes.
So, Googling spherical pancake enemies with red pants that burrow brings up a picture of one
Wow.
of the aliens from Mass Effect.
Weird.
Yeah.
That's
Interesting.
it.
Oh!
You have to jump on, yeah, it's Garrus. You jump on his head to get to the platform.
My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that I texted you on when I was like doing one of those secret levels. I'm like, I think I've died on this like 30 times.
It is good that they're so forgiving, because they're
there are usually one up mushrooms.
and if you pound the nails, they'll usually pop out an extra life as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of like leeway for them, like, because the one-ups are usually pretty early, so you can keep retrying, which is kind of important for that kind of a challenge. Mm-hmm. But some of those are some of my favorite parts of the game, weirdly. Like, that's where the gameplay catches up with the aesthetic. Where it's like, I enjoy the aesthetic all the way through, and then they put in, like, a really complicated platforming level that really gets, like, my fucking heart pumping. I'm like,
right.
Yes, this is, yes! Oh,
it's one of those things that, like, really strikes me as a weird decision as well.
Yeah.
Because it's just, like, so...
Because that's where they completely break from the thing.
Yeah.
They're like, you walked into a cave.
Yeah. Here's some regular kind of Mario ideas, but we stripped it away to it's just blocks to jump on.
Right. Yep. I mean, there were levels in Mario 64 that were just blocks to jump on.
Yeah, but they were, like, still themed around an idea.
We established at the very beginning of this episode, though, that it was 64 is like has themes to individual levels, but they're
right.
on the scale as far down.
Right.
Yeah, in the 3D games.
Mm-hmm. Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, you brought it up earlier, but I was sort of sad that this game also fell under
a bridge.
So I was also sad that this game was sort of included in a lot of the early just moving to like home console generations games that still sort of clung to the live system because it's such a video gamey thing.
Yeah.
Like you can't hold it. The culture of lives was so ingrained at the time that you can't hold it against it that much, but it took people forever to realize that there's almost no point to a live system and the vast majority of circumstances.
Right. Yeah, like they're basically the like lives continues system that was prevalent, especially in like back in the 8 and 16-bit days.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously came from the arcades.
Yeah.
But then when you got into home consoles, as you were describing, it's like I think that there is a good way to do lives, and that is like the lives continues system, where it's you can keep retrying from a checkpoint.
Yeah, I think it's how long does it take you to get back to where you were.
Right.
Because, like, Mario 64 has lives as well, but, like, and I think so does Galaxy, but I don't ever remember them being an issue, whereas in this game it felt like an ordeal if I, like, got a game over, and I was like, God damn it.
Yeah.
Well, see, it doesn't matter.
But I don't know why that is in this game.
It doesn't matter in the normal course of, like, level progression. What it matters is in those secret levels,
right,
and in overworld challenges.
Or in the challenges. Like, if you, like, lose to, like, the blooper game, it makes you lose a life. Even though you didn't die.
Yeah.
That's really frustrating.
and then if you game over, you have to make it back to the bloopers.
But they're right there at the beginning, so that's not a good example. But there were times like that where there was a challenge that I failed, and then I had to go all the way back to it.
The obvious one that people are probably, that I just haven't been bringing up because I know neither of you have done it.
Yeah.
But I did, and it sucks. The really obvious part where the lives thing becomes a serious issue is there is a horrible garbage thing in this game that I know when I was like, how old? 13 playing this?
Sure.
Something in that area. I was like on the verge of tears by the time that I beat it. And it is this one mission. It's just a collect 8 red coins mission.
Yeah.
Where you're on like a toxic lake and you have to ride a disintegrating leaf to the end and collect the 8 coins. Which is hard.
Mm-hmm.
But worse than that, getting there requires you to get Yoshi, then jump on a boat, ride it around an island, jump to a second island, get on a second boat, ride that to another island with a pipe on it so you can use his fruit breath.
Acid spitting.
Acid vomit spit. His alien acid spit to melt the weird fruit lava to jump in to do it. So if you gamed over, you had to do the whole thing again.
I've seen someone complain about that in a review that I watched like 5 years ago on YouTube.
And it stuck with you.
It did.
Because you were like, that seems tedious.
Yeah, I saw an
It's
image
extremely tedious.
of Mario on the Yoshi on the ship moving through the harbor.
Very slowly.
I've also heard of this.
Yeah. It's terrible.
Sounds pretty terrible.
Yeah, that is where the life thing really falls down, because it's like, just don't make me do that again.
Yeah.
Like, anything to not do that again.
Yeah, if anything, you should be able to do that once and then just grab the turbo nozzle and just boost over there.
To the island, but they always
At the very
replace
least, you don't have to ride the
Yeah,
bus.
there's no reason to make the overworld lava shit persistent. Like, I don't see... There's
That
no
does seem
justification for it.
stupid to include in the overworld.
Yeah. I mean, see, that's the thing, though. I actually like the process of figuring out how to get over there, but doing it more than once is just needless.
Right.
It's, yeah. How about that sound design, though? It's probably...
Yeah, I'd say the sound design's pretty good.
You disagreed with me that this has the best soundtrack of a Mario game.
Yeah, like, just...
Probably because it was a
not-
broad, sweeping statement.
Could not disagree with you more. I think a lot of the music in this game, like the stages, a lot of it is really samey. I would say it has the worst soundtrack of any Mario game.
Wow. Coming from somebody who's not played Galaxy 2, I know that Galaxy 1's orchestral soundtrack did not strike my fancy.
That at least has, like, a theme or two that I can remember. Because I would say that, like, Mario Galaxy's soundtrack also is kind of lacking in catchy tunes, but, like, I cannot remember a single song from this game that isn't Delfino Plaza.
Okay,
which is a great song.
I was gonna nail you hard on Delfino Plaza.
But yeah,
years of Smash Brothers, it made that unforgettable.
That's a great song, but like all the rest of it, just like can't remember even a little.
Man, I don't know.
It's all just kind of like steel drum islandy songs,
right? But I mean,
like it gets old.
I guess you listen to ska music.
Yeah, it doesn't sound. It's not like that.
Yeah,
it's
I think this ties into what we were talking about in the theming earlier, where what they could do musically that sort of matched what was going on in the game was limited also by the theme that they chose.
I'm not saying that island music is bad. I like island music.
Well, my joke was that ska music is repetitive.
Oh,
and so it gets samey.
But it's not. I don't listen to the same song over and over again.
Sure. But I mean, okay. So if Galaxy's soundtrack didn't do it for you either, then 64 is your only option for best.
Galaxy's soundtrack does do it for me, but to a lesser degree.
So you're saying 64 is what you're going with?
Yeah.
Here's why you're wrong.
64 has more of like old school music, like
sensibility.
Yeah, sensibility is a good word. Because like in older days of video games, they were so limited that they had to rely on like these really catchy riffs, so that the music wouldn't get like boring or repetitive. You wouldn't mind listening to it.
Yeah.
Right.
And like modern games don't really do that anymore. And like as a result, a lot of like modern games don't have as memorable music. Mario 64 has that old design sensibility where like all the tunes are really catchy and memorable.
I think this is maybe drifting a little bit off topic, but when we're talking about sound design for video games broadly in this day and age, a lot of the like truly ultra modern video games sort of shake that sound design off, but even the most modern of video games, that at least that I think have great soundtracks, still sort of adhere to that sort of weird catchiness that's unique to the medium. The thing that comes to mind for me immediately is the Final Fantasy 13 soundtrack, which is like a Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy 13.
Good.
Like, Final Fantasy, they have a composer though, like who's like super ultra famous.
I know, but
they have a composer.
They have a composer. You know, like
so
that's an unfair advantage.
But my point is that even when they have like all the resources in the world related to music,
right,
the best soundtrack simulation of video games that I can remember are still those like really catchy tunes.
Yeah.
The examples of games that I have like all the resources in the world that don't make that decision aren't like better. In fact, I think they're worse. Like I couldn't name to you like a single song, assuming this is even a thing, from like any modern Call of Duty. They're all just like background tracks designed to sort of thematically match up with what you're doing at the time.
Which is why people had such a boner for like the Undertale soundtrack.
Like me, I have my boner remains.
Yeah. If you have a boner lasting more than 4 hours, contact a doctor.
If you've had an erection lasting since the release of Undertale,
you're fine.
Yeah, that's actually perfectly normal.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think Mario's moved away from that, whereas like 64 embraced that kind of music.
But I think that Sunshine strikes exactly the happy medium, at least for me. We're talking about, like, we started with sound design and went to music, which is the most subjective.
Yes.
But
I will say sound design's great.
Yeah, sound is there are actually things I do want to talk about in that regard. Basically, the only thing I wanted to say is that in Super Mario 64, it absolutely does stick with that. Like, we want to engineer catchy tunes.
Right, yeah. I probably know the whole soundtrack. Like,
good. That means that you know the song that starts off with 3 horrible train whistle noises that plays on Rainbow Ride and in, like, 2 other levels.
Oh, the whistle song? That's one of my favorite Mario songs.
Dude,
there's a level in 3D. I just bought 3D World because it's $20 now.
Okay.
There's a slide level, like in the first world, that plays that song. And I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. I love this song.
My head would have exploded like the guy from Scanners.
No, yeah, they do reuse that song, like, too much in that game. But it's definitely a classic.
I have so few horses in this fight that I am tending.
You mean in this race?
No, in this fight.
I was immediately like, oh my god, fighting horses.
Yeah.
Shut the podcast down, we need to make a game.
I was tending to your combat horses.
Gotcha.
I was putting the gloves on their hooves so that they didn't kill each other.
Right.
And instead just sort of wounded each other and knocked each other unconscious.
What were we talking about? Music?
Well, did you have a statement about how you didn't have any horses in the fight race?
That's what that statement was.
Okay, alright. Just making sure. Okay. But no, the things I want to say about the sound design are just like how well it goes into just sort of making, I don't know, you would assume like good game design is just making your world more consistent. And so I don't think it's really saying anything to say that the sounds make the world feel better because they're like...
They make the gameplay feel better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. It's just kind of like...
Sound design is something people take for granted.
Yep.
Like, if you had, like, a jump sound effect that was off in any way, it would be really weird.
Right.
But awful.
Yeah, I'm really glad that Mario... I guess this is, like, a natural thing as the technology progressed, but when... Like, I'm glad that Mario has a voice actor. Like, I'm glad that Charles Martinet does things for Mario, because in, like, older Mario games, when you jumped, it made, like, a spring noise, which seemed to make some amount of sense.
Yeah.
From, like, a weird, abstract, like, cartoon perspective.
Yeah.
But, like, if that continued to happen, like, that would be so odd. And, like, you still see games that are platformers that have, like, this sort of, like, whoosh noise. And that's fine, but it's really not as, like, just emotive as Mario's jumping.
Yeah.
You're just, like, hearing the wahoo, the kind of thing is so, like, it just drives that, like, it gives you that, like, impactful feeling of the jump.
Yeah, and each, like, on the triple jump, it's a different sound for each jump.
Yeah.
I feel the need to point out, though, that the feedback isn't exclusively emotive. It's not all Mario making noises. You can also, like, just hear his feet make contact at each point. Right,
yeah. In fact, the sound of the sound of Mark Rosewater's feet, the sound of Mario's feet running across, like, the cobblestone streets is such, like, a weirdly pleasing sound.
Yeah.
Because Mario is, like, such a small man. Mm-hmm. And, like, he takes very fast steps. It's just so good.
I feel like it's the closest thing I'll ever come to appreciating, like, tap dancing as an institution.
Mario's running across the cobblestones.
Yeah.
But he also makes splashing sound effects and if he's, like, in shallow water. And the sound when you slide on the water is super satisfying as well.
Just, like, you can hear it.
I'm not going to try to imitate it.
Yeah, no.
It's not a mouth-compatible noise.
Yeah. It's just all very like that's the kind of thing that Nintendo excels at. Is it takes a game and like
The polish.
yeah, it's
Nintendo's
it's
good at
making a Mario game from a 3D platformer into like a Disneyland-esque like joyous experience. In fact, one thing that I didn't mention earlier that I actually always think about when I play this game, you were discussing those like red spinny blade enemies that are on the tightropes.
Yeah.
Those guys bother me from a design standpoint because they're like the only enemy in Mario that doesn't have a face. Like every enemy in Mario has a face.
Interesting.
And those are just like, I mean, I guess they're just supposed to be like hazards.
Yeah, because I've never thought of them as enemies.
Yeah, but I always think of them as enemies because what's the difference between them and a thwomp block? Like a thwomp block is a piece of stone.
Yeah.
That comes down.
I don't
but
know.
It has like, it makes like a grimace as it slams down the
I
ground.
guess
It
since
goes,
it's like, I just always kind of like viewed it as like part of the tightrope, even though that makes no sense.
Right, yeah.
I just kind of, as it's just like a hazard to jump over.
They do have to pick one sort of like arbitrary cutoff point too, because it's not like in those abstracted levels where all the blocks are like moving and pushing around. Each one of those has a face.
Right,
It's not
right.
literally every challenge or every even individual object it's capable of moving under its own power is humanized. It's just a lot of them.
Well, it used to be even more than that. In Super Mario World, the like blocks that you would hit, just the standard yellow block, had a face on it.
Yeah.
Or it had eyes. And it's like, in this game, it makes sense. I think the delineation typically is that if something is an enemy, it has a face. And if something is a platform, even in like the most abstracted way, if it doesn't have a face, you know you can walk on it. And, like, for this thing to not have a face just always bugged me. And I don't know why. I mean, other than for the reasons I just
It's not
gave.
quite big enough to have a face.
Yeah,
really.
like, if they...
Maybe it does, and you just can't see it.
It makes it seem so much more menacing. Like, because
guess.
it doesn't have a face. It's like, this is just a machine
Yeah.
designed to kill me.
I've never even thought about it, so...
And that's way more comforting than just like 70% of all life actively attempting to do you harm.
They were like, should we put a face on it or like electricity?
Yeah. We can only choose one.
Yeah, there's not enough. We used up
There's
all
not
the
enough
memory.
blast process.
Yeah, we used up all the memory for the game. We can't put both face and electricity on it. This is the last thing we're adding.
Miyamoto, we have no more game left to come to this enemy.
We have one last slice of game. but like the wind has a face.
They do. It does. It does
Like
have a face.
that's the arbitrary line.
I don't know.
Red thing, no face. Wind, definitely face.
Yeah, I think they view it as not an enemy. It's just a hazard.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Yeah. That was my...
I have to ask Miyamoto in an interview.
Yeah.
When we become famous.
Super famous.
Yeah.
Extremely famous.
Yeah. That was my, like, one pet rant that I needed to have
Good.
during this episode.
I'm glad it was there.
Because I don't know why that always struck me, but it just does.
That is weird. What were we even talking about before this?
Sound design.
Oh, right.
Good.
I felt like we were having a good conversation about that, but now it's
We
gone.
have had a fantastic conversation this whole time.
Yeah. I've been enjoying myself.
Me
Was
too.
it good for you?
God damn it.
I'm stunned about how positive I've managed to stay on this podcast.
Do you want to, like, just dump?
Oh yeah, because I'm at like my 2-minute warning here before I have to just like escape out the window and avoid the
Before
police.
you do that,
Yeah.
I wanted to say, even though I've been really critical because Chad loves this game so much,
Yeah.
I wanted to be negative Nancy.
Mhm.
I did really enjoy this game, and despite all its flaws, I think it's still a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Like, I think people, because there's a lot of weird things that I assume lots of other people perceive as weird to be in a Mario game, people give this game too much flack.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend it.
Yeah. I think the takeaway from this game, and, like, specifically from our opinions, Andy and I,
Bring sunglasses.
bring sunglasses.
Yeah, wear your sunglasses when you play.
Well, it's just that this game is it's a fun Mario game. Like, that's just literally it. Like, I wouldn't argue that it's like a perfect game or like even one of the best 3D platformers I've ever played. It's just super. It just has that Nintendo feel to it in a way that not much does.
Yeah, and I think I can appreciate it even more as an adult because it does things differently than other Mario games.
Right.
Like, I feel like if I would have played it at the time, well, I think I was young enough that I would have just liked it because I was a kid and I like everything.
Yeah.
But like, if I were an adult at the time and I had loved Mario 64, this game probably would have bothered me because it was different.
Yeah, it's like there's like a weird sort of like angsty like tween teen
Yeah.
middle ground between youthful innocence and like intellectual appreciation.
Yeah, so-
where you just hate everything that's like different and
Yep.
not the things that you want.
So I feel like I would fall into that camp if I had played this at the right time. But like, since I played it now, I think I appreciate it more.
Fair enough.
So now you can dump on it.
Oh, good.
We've gilded it. So it can be.
Immense pre-asterisks of there's nothing that I could say in response to Mario Sunshine that I wouldn't say to virtually every other platformer I've played, which means that my opinions, if you care about platformers at all, are just pretty much irrelevant to you. But this was by far the least fun I've had playing any cast game in the history of the cast. I would have quit
guessed
in
that.
under 1 hour if we were not playing for the cast specifically.
Okay.
It was painful. I had to take
Okay, hold on.
breaks.
How many 3D platformers have you played?
I have never played a single to completion, but I have played tons of different 3D platformers for like less than 5 hour increments.
Which one was your favorite?
I feel like JJ's experience with 3D platformers is similar to my experience with like real-time strategy games.
I was going to say the same
It's like
thing
I've
for me,
played like
yeah.
several of them,
Yeah.
but just don't get into them.
There is, I think calling any single 3D platformer I've ever played my favorite would confer too much positivity to the experience I had with it.
Which one did you hate the least? Or is it it's too hard of a question?
I
just thought it would be interesting context.
A bunch of them. Because again, I've done so many little samplings, because you can't not play platformers. That's not an option. But
Well, it's
It's
specifically
required.
3D platformers. It's almost like 3D platformers act effectively as a totally separate genre
Then 2D.
to a 2D platform because the things that it wants you to know and care about are different. The only real carryover is momentum and like memorizing jump arcs.
Yeah.
Right.
And beyond that, like every 3D platformer is vastly
Right.
different
And
than
like,
2D.
Can
Can we just say Metroid Prime? Like, does that just work?
No.
It has platforming elements to it, and you
JJ
fought your way through that.
JJ
Yeah.
will fight tooth and nail that like Metroid is not a platformer.
Yeah,
There's lots of things that I'll fight against the platform elements from, as this cast has shown. We can go to the tapes to show me multiple times
'Cause
arguing things.
I
on
bring
less
that. Yeah,
platformer
I
than
say
you
I
suggest
bring
they are.
I bring that up all
That's
the
what
time.
I do with
that you,
RPGs.
like,
But yeah,
I
I'm going
refuse to
to.
believe things are RPGs.
I'm gonna like look this up. I'm just
Okay.
gonna go through a history of like important 3D platformers because I feel like I want to give a more informed answer to this
Right.
question than I can right now.
I just thought it would be interesting context.
Yeah.
And I ended up derailing the.
The question that I have about because you say you quit within an hour.
Oh yeah.
So my thought is that what put you off of this game was the ability to control your character.
Oh yeah, as what to you guys will be my standard platformer rant, but for the audience's sake needs to be given again, is that I really, really dislike lots of systems and lots of different types of games where what you're trying to master isn't even necessarily like overcoming some kind of active resistance in your environment, but instead just trying to like do one specific thing really well repeatedly. And I get that there's like a lot of ambiguity in the definition of like if your environment moves, does it count as a resistant force or not, things like that. But abstracting away from that, in platformers specifically, like I hate circumstances where here's a platform and here's another platform and neither of them ever change and your goal is to just jump between them.
Right.
I feel like your goal in almost every video game you create is generally to try and make that process of I want to go there, so I will, as unobstructive as humanly possible, and then create other things that provide resistance that force the player to sort of respond or do something different or like adapt to the control they already have.
I think that the core like resistance point here is, well, I mean, in addition to the fact that just the area traversal dynamic of a 3D platformer is just not what you're in it to do.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, I feel like the fact that you haven't really played more than like 5 or 6 hours of a 3D platformer is probably informing this like immense distaste.
Yep.
And I think it's because the idea of a 3D platformer saying I'm here and I want to be there,
Yeah.
cross a gap, is like, that is tutorial level platforming.
Yeah.
Because the object of a platformer is to make getting to from point A to point B interesting to do. And so jumping across a gap is not interesting.
Yeah.
But jumping across a gap, avoiding an enemy is slightly more interesting, and then more than that, putting an obstacle in front of you and like forcing you to think of a different way to get across, especially at high speed, especially with like an arsenal at your disposal. So like rather than just jumping, you can now do a wall kick and go around. And like that kind of thing is what's interesting.
A good way to make people who are very, very sort of well established with 3D platformers to sympathize with my position of someone who's not even close to established with them is I hear a lot of people who care about a lot of platformers 2 or 3D. And the thing that they really hate is like pixel perfect jumping sections.
Sure.
For me, virtually everything you have to do in a platformer is a pixel perfect jumping scenario.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the same thing with... I feel like we share a lot in common, but just apply it to real-time strategy games. Like, that happened to me. I played through... The only campaign mode of an RTS that I've ever completed is StarCraft 2's first campaign. And I remember, like, Mark just outright laughing at my, like, inability to manage resources. Like, that's the kind of thing, like, to you making a jump is very difficult because it's not something that you intuit internally. And for me, like, thinking about a situation before I do a thing is just not what I do. That explains, like, perfectly
I think that's why you
platformers are a thing that I love.
I want to say, it's why you love Meat Boy.
Yep.
Meat Boy is a game where you just kind of do.
Right.
You don't really think about it.
You learn as you go. That's the important thing.
So with all that sympathy established, is there anything you guys want to question me before I sprint out of that door and smash through the like glass window?
No. I think.
I wouldn't even know where to begin to question your opinions because they're so completely different than mine.
That is the matter at hand. I don't believe that we have anything else to add.
Nope.
I think we're in the books.
Solid cast.
Yes.
Metal Gear cast.
So, thank you. These hand motions. I don't know. Thank you.
Them. Thank the hand motions.
Yes, thank these hand motions for listening to No Clip again this week.
What are we playing next time?
Next time, actually, I already told them what we're playing next time on my 2-minute apology cast.
Oh, yeah.
Tell them again.
But we're going to be playing the Talos Principle by Crow Team, and that should be a fun time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo!
Woo!
Yes.
Woo!
As always, you can get a hold of us at noclippodcast@gmail.com, on Twitter at noclippodcast, YouTube, noclip, and on iTunes, if you're not already listening to us there. Oh.